In thinking about this speech tonight, I decided that I wanted to do something a little bit differently. Instead of a rah-rah kind of speech and talk about all the victories that we've had, and we've had victories. Sisters and brothers, I think that we've got to have some other conversations. We've got to have an honest discussion about where we are as a movement and what we must do to fend off the attacks on not only our members, but on working families across the country. I firmly believe that we meet tonight at a moment of unique challenge for the labor movement and for all working families. I can't think of a time when our values have come under such attack and such assault. Every single day, the corporate special interests try to slander and scapegoat us, denigrate and demonize us with dishonest, below-the-belt attacks. Also, they can take more for themselves, more power, more wealth, at the expense of working families who are simply trying to play by the rules every single day. I'm telling you, they aren't out to just have a polite conversation with us, with a polite disagreement. We've got to understand this, sisters and brothers. They are out to destroy us, not hurt us. They are out to destroy us because they understand this fact, that we stand in their way. Labor stands in their way. Our community and coalition partners stand in their way. And they want to take us out of the ball game. We've got that big bullseye on our backs. It's happening all across the country. I'm sure all of you know this. Who would have thought it? But right now, there are 28 states across this country that are now right-to-work states. Can you believe that? Michigan, a right-to-work state. West Virginia, a right-to-work state. Missouri and Kentucky, a couple of months ago, became right-to-work states. The majority of states, right-to-work. But the attacks, they don't stop there. They're coming after us in state after state. In Iowa, which is a right-to-work state, we have had a history with that state, AFSCME, and other public service unions of being able to negotiate over the past 40 years because we've had collective bargaining in that right-to-work state. 40 years ago, a Republican legislature passed legislation enabling us to bargain collectively, and a Republican governor signed that legislation because they understood the value of working people having a seat at the table. Well, after the debacle of the November elections and we lost the Senate in Iowa, a Republican governor, a Republican House, Republican Senate decided that they didn't want to deal with collective bargaining anymore. They didn't want to deal with unions anymore. They didn't want to deal with AFSCME anymore. And they gutted. After 40 years of success, they gutted that collective bargaining law in Iowa. You know what else they did? They took dues checkoff away from us, made it illegal in the state of Iowa. Now they were hoping that that was going to do it, that that was going to silence our voices, that we were going to just run away and go and hide. Well, I was there a month and a half ago And sisters and brothers, let me tell you this. Our members are more charged up than they ever have been. We're fighting like hell to gain our rights back. We're making our voices heard. And like Terry said, we're going to kick some ass in Iowa. State after state, we're under attack. Private sector unions, public sector unions, building trades. Right here in New York State, we've had to fight to protect our jobs and our benefits and our living standards. I'm proud to say that working with our allies in the state legislature, we had some important wins in this year's final budget. But let me say this, sisters and brothers, we have got to continue to be vigilant. We can't let our guards down here in New York State or across the country. You heard Terry talk about the New York State Constitution. It's enshrined important rights for working people over nearly a century. Rights like collective bargaining, public employee pensions, and civil service guarantees. A constitutional convention would create an opening for corporate special interests to influence the process and undermine these essential protections that we now enjoy. So all our unions in New York State, together with our allies across the political spectrum, must unite to defeat the measure on the ballot this November. If we come together in solidarity and work like hell, we will win in November, but we need your commitment. And we need your dedication. I've been talking about the problems in states. But you know, I'm originally from Cleveland, but I live in Washington, D.C. now. I've been there since 1977. Things are pretty rough in that city for all of us, for working families. You know, we've got a new president. Everybody knows his name is Donald Trump. Now, let me say this. He made a lot of commitments on the campaign trail. He made a lot of promises about how he was going to support and help working families all across this country. So I don't think we can take the position that we've got to oppose everything that he does. But I do think that we need to take the position that if you're going to talk the talk, you're going to walk the walk, and if you don't walk the walk, we're going to raise hell and we're going to question what those commitments really were. So let's look. Some of the things that he's done in the first 100 days. He's worked with a very conservative Congress to try to throw out Obamacare. Now, Obamacare we've had issues with, and we know that there are things within that law that need to be fixed. But you don't fix it by removing 24 million people off the rolls of health care. And that's what Trump Care would do. Is that walking the walk, sisters and brothers? I mean, he presents a budget where he supports the military, and we need a strong military. But he gives tax breaks for the very wealthy corporations, and he guts programs that our members and working families rely upon. Is that walking the walk? Is he walking the walk when he continues to support those who he criticized? Those folks on Wall Street making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then we've got the United States Supreme Court. He was successful, the Senate was successful. He nominated, and the Senate made Justice Gorsuch a new justice of the Supreme Court. If you look at his record, he's pro-corporate, anti-worker. We have a case in the public sector that's coming before the Supreme Court either the end of this year or the beginning of next year. It's called Janus. And what Janus does is this: it overturns 40 years of law by wiping out agency fee, fair share in the public sector. Sisters and brothers, we're preparing for the worst. We're preparing that by June of next year or even earlier, in the public sector across this country, there will be no fair share. Which essentially means that you can have folks in the bargaining unit, exclusive representation, they don't have to pay one dime to the union, but they receive all of the benefits derived from the union. We're faced with this very, very real possibility next year. But let me do this, because I don't want to spend all of my time cataloging all the bad things that Trump has done or other politicians are doing. I think it's important that all of us and all of our unions focus on what we can do for ourselves, and maybe look internally at what we're doing right, but more importantly, what we're doing wrong. What we're doing right, we need to continue those kinds of things. But if we're doing something wrong, we need to be bold enough and brave enough to make the necessary changes. You know, the fact is, the challenges we face aren't entirely external or beyond our control. Some were, at least in part, I believe, of our own making, because we were slow to adapt and reluctant to make the kinds of necessary changes that our labor movement, I believe, must make. I think that one of the reasons we ended up with a Trump for president in the first place, one of the reasons we lost last year's election, is because we have lost an intimate connection with many of our members. We have lost an intimate connection with many of our members. In many cases, we have stopped listening to them, and the result has been they've stopped listening to us. In many cases, we have stopped communicating with them, and as a result, they have stopped communicating with us. So I want to offer a little bit of tough love tonight. Is that okay? Talking truth to power here. I want to urge us all to evaluate our own unions honestly and critically, what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And I would submit to you that there's a lot of room for improvement. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, but I do see a problem that has to be addressed. And I'm not absolving or excusing my own union. We have become complacent, taking members too much for granted, clinging to a top-down organization model, failing to acclimate to a more fragmented world powered by digital communications. Over time, we found that we were talking to fewer and fewer people. Our activist base was actually shrinking. And truth be told, we weren't connecting. Now, I say this in some of my speeches across the country. Sometimes I feel that I'm in a 1957 Chevy. Now, I remember the 1957 Chevy. I'm looking around this room, and I know that a lot of people do remember that car. It was a great car in 1957. It's not a great car in 2017. It was cutting edge for its time. But today, sisters and brothers, it's an antique. The fact is that no major American institution can function in 2017 as it did in the Eisenhower administration. Things have changed. Our members have changed. This country has changed. The world has changed. So we need to take a good look at ourselves and ask some real tough questions about the way we do business, about the way we communicate, about the way we're structured. Soup and nuts. In my union, we've decided that we're going to tackle this problem. And I was listening to the sister from CWA, and I know that they've decided to tackle this issue also. We've been engaged in that difficult work for the last few years through a program that we call AFSCME Strong. I know that CSCA calls it Never Quit. And the heart of the program is internal organizing, re-engaging our sisters and brothers within our union. How do we do that? This is not rocket science. You don't need to be a PhD to figure this out. You know how we do it? It's all about grassroots organizing, talking with people, having conversations with them one-on-one, looking them dead in the eyes, and not only talking to them, but seeking their advice and their ideas. So we set a goal within AFSCME. We're 1.6 million members strong. We set a goal that we were going to have 1 million individual one-on-one conversations with our members and non-members alike. It's a tough road to go. But let me tell you something. We've been involved in this process now for 1.5 years to 2 years. Many thought that it couldn't be done. But we have actually had individual conversations with the support of our affiliates in the National Union with 620,000 of our members, and we're going to reach that 1 million member goal. And then we're going to raise the bar and do more. You know, the idea behind these conversations is not to recite a bunch of talking points or to force an agenda on these individuals. The idea is to listen more than talk, to better understand what matters to them, what inspires them, what moves them to action, what they want out of their union. It's not my union, it's their union. What they want out of life, for that matter. We believe this contact is absolutely essential. Especially in this do or die moment, when folks will be deciding whether or not to stick with us in a national right to work environment or to join us in our fight, to join us in our struggles. I honestly believe that AFSCME Strong has profoundly changed how we communicate. We've gotten used to talking to all members as though they were activists. It was a one-size-fits-all conversation. Well, sisters and brothers, I've got to tell you that all of our members aren't activists. They're good union members, and they're good people. But they've got a lot on their plates. And we can't expect everyone to be activists, but we've got to open our arms and ask them to participate in any way possible. Now we're reaching out more effectively to members with all different levels of loyalty, with all different levels of engagement, including those whose relationship to their union may be a little bit more transactional than what we would like, who don't wake up every morning thinking about the power of collective action, but they are still good union members. We're meeting members where they are, customizing our messages to them. And in those messages, we're lifting up the individual pride they have in their own work, talking to them about what they do every single day, thanking them for the work that they do, and asking them to be involved. And we're recognizing their desire for solidarity, but there's also a desire not to be a part of a large body all of the time. They want to be treated as individuals. So it's solidarity but it's not conformity. So we're making these kinds of changes within our union. Number one, because it's the right thing to do, but secondly, we don't have a choice. And I would submit to you that you don't have a choice. That other unions within our movement don't have a choice. We've got to change the way that we do business. Now, this is still a work in progress. And I don't want to suggest that we have all the answers. We don't. But you know what? Collectively, I think we can come up with the majority of the answers. But what we're doing is change the culture of our union. It's preparing us to confront the challenges we face today and the challenges that we face in the future. No matter what the Koch brothers or the millionaire class throw at us. Now, the AFL-CIO is in the middle of a major course correction too. A lot of your leaders know this. And I've been participating in those discussions because I'm not only a vice president, but I'm on the finance committee and I'm the chair of the political action committee. We've got to face the realities that confront us as a labor movement. So recently, the AFL adopted a new budget last month that includes a significant restructuring, moving out of that 1957 Chevy and purchasing a brand new model. And I got to tell you, it was a hard process. It was a difficult process, involving a lot of soul searching and some decisions that really go against the grain of us as trade unionists. But we had to make those really tough decisions, and that also is a work in progress. But in the end, the new budget reflects principles and priorities agreed to by all of the affiliates in the AFL-CIO. The primary focus on national and state field campaigns, as well as a renewed focus on addressing legislative and regulatory and organizing issues that impact on our members and working families every single day. And it's my hope and belief that this restructuring will lead to a more nimble AFL-CIO, better able to meet the needs of all of its affiliates, better equipped to rise to the challenges that all of us face. Now, despite all of the challenges that I've just talked about, my folks always told me this: Lee, you should always look at the glass as being half full, not half empty. And based upon these challenges, sisters and brothers, I've actually got optimism. If we do this right, if we're smart about it, if we set out and develop a strategic plan and a program and change the way that we're doing things, I think we can have a bright future. I believe that the Trump presidency has led us to an awakening, not only within our members, but among ordinary citizens, among community members, among coalition partners, community partners, where all of us can come together and make our voices heard. The labor movement has never done it alone. Never. We have always worked closely with our partners outside of labor, our community partners, because we are a part of the community. And we've got to go back to basics in developing and redeveloping those relationships. Look what's happening. What's happening across the country? The Women's March that took place, not only in Washington, D.C., but all over the United States, and as a matter of fact, around the world. People are becoming agitated. People are beginning to organize. People are beginning to mobilize. We must continue that moment. We've got to. Marches and rallies and demonstrations, people coming together. Everywhere I go, people are angry about what's happening, about being marginalized and disrespected, about the attacks on the dignity of work, about all the ways that the middle class is getting the shaft while the wealthy make out like bandits. The question is this: can we harness this energy, and can we sustain this energy? Can we turn that anger into action? Can we channel this energy, making sure all the passion and the fury is directed toward clear goals and clear strategies? Can we make the necessary structural renovations within the House of Labor to seize this opportunity that I believe we have? Can we build a movement that fits this moment? I believe we can, but only if all of us are committed to change, and only with the strongest possible solidarity among our unions. You know, our enemies would like nothing better than to drive a wedge between us, to play divide and conquer. That's what they're doing, and we can't fall for that. To pit private sector against public sector, service workers against manufacturing, against building trades. That's the game plan. That's what they're trying to do. They aren't hiding it. We can't fall for it. We can't let that happen. That is an attack on our movement that all of us have been giving blood, sweat, and tears for. And I'll be damned if I let somebody separate us. We've got to come together. We've got to fight like never before. Can't let it happen. You know, whether you work in a classroom or on a construction site, in a foundry or a healthcare clinic, our interests are essentially the same. Fair wages, decent benefits, safe working conditions, a voice on the job, the chance to retire with dignity. You know, the labor movement was built on the belief that an injury to one is an injury to all. That we have to hang together, or we'll all hang separately, and we will lose the fight. At this pivotal moment for all of us, with our very right to exist under attack, sisters and brothers, we must hold fast to the values that have sustained us, those principles that have sustained us for so long. You heard Flo talk about my family, what they taught my brother and me about the importance of solidarity, about the importance of standing together, about the importance of community, about the importance of union. I am damn proud to be a union member, and nobody will ever be able to take that away from me, and I'm sure you feel the same way, don't you? Damn proud. It's worth fighting for. Standing up, demanding, not asking, but demanding for a seat at the table so we can make change for working families all across this country. So, sisters and brothers, let us march forward together. Arms locked and spines stiffened together. Proud and resilient together. In unity and solidarity all together. That's what our movement is all about, toward a dynamic future for all of us, whether you are in a union or not in a union, where we are supporting our communities and working families all across this country. That's who we are. That is our history. That's what it's about. Challenges are great. The issues that confront us are sometimes overwhelming. But we have an old saying within my union: That saying is this: when AFSCME fights, AFSCME wins. When the labor movement fights, the labor movement wins. When our partners together fight with us, our country wins. Are you ready to engage in battle? Are you ready to make your voices heard? Are you ready to fight like hell? If you are, then let's kick some ass and get to it.